ahead and get this rolling. If you're using the software, and if you're using some other software, it's a pretty good chance you felt like this, right? You feel like your data is kind of trapped inside of your business system. It's almost like you got your little four walls and that stuff's locked in. Once you enter it, it's there. You can pull some of it out in the form of canned reports, if you will, from the application, or even views or displays. But you're kind of at the whim of the fellow who designs the reports or displays. It's really kind of a common feeling within Passport and pretty much any other business system out there. So today what we're going to do is we're going to start to talk about ways that we can start to, unlock the door, if you will, and start to get at that information. So some of the things we're going to learn or talk about at the very least today is going to be kind of beginning really at the end, which is with the reporting dashboard. We're going to begin there because that's the first thing we're going to see. After that, we'll talk a little bit about how we can get at the information using Microsoft Access, through what we call real-time linking and as well as static data views.
Yeah.
We're going to discuss a little bit about the flexibility of querying the data in our tables. How can we go after that information? Are there restrictions to it? We'll talk about some of that, and then we'll take a look at some examples of both some queries, some reports, and even some forms, if you will, or views of information. So, big questions, right? Why do you need to know this? Well, everybody has different informational needs, and that is absolutely positively true statement. As Robin had said when she introduced, I'm the manufacturing product manager. I work with many folks. In fact, we have some of our customers, the customers I work with in the field here today. And we can take the same configuration of, be it the manufacturing or distribution or financial modules, put it into the field into two companies doing the same things. And within 6 months, you're both going to have requests in the area of unique reporting. Boy, it'd be nice, Ian, if it could do this. And the funny thing is neither of them are going to be the same. And the reality is we all look at our businesses just a little bit differently. We want to see information just a little bit differently, sometimes a lot differently. It's kind of interesting, some of the requests that you'll see come across, which leads us to the next point here, and that is that the most common custom modification request that I see come across my desk is for custom reporting. Now, using our SQL database, and this is mostly applicable to the XDBC driver if you've got that in the field as well. SQL comes with its own benefits and speed and so on as far as speed of querying that data from the back end. So we don't need source code. And B, we don't need to be a programmer to be able to do most of what I'm going to show you today. Okay? There are areas where, knowing a little bit about programming would certainly help if you want to get into some really complex stuff. But I personally have worked with many folks in the field over the years that are far from programmers. They're folks that, they're production managers, or in some cases they're grunts on the shop floor. Folks that are bookkeepers, accountants, CPAs, and everything in between. And it's, to this day, I don't think I've met anybody that I have not been able to, if given a little bit of time, teach how to do some of the basics here. So, last point here, most importantly, is we're going to learn how to leverage that data so that we can become more efficient, effective, and ideally profitable within the organization. A couple of last questions here. Why Microsoft Access? Well, it's a great packaging of the SQL database. What do I mean by that? Think of the Internet, right? Back in the early 90s when it first got cranking, AOL owned it, at least on a consumer level. America Online owned it. And why did they own it? Because they put a nice, pretty wrapper around the Internet. They made it easy for the average Joe to get on and use. Access is a similar type of thing with SQL. SQL can be confusing. If you start getting in trying to write SQL code, Access can help us avoid a lot of that kind of stuff. Now, it can also allow us to do some of that stuff, but it can help us avoid that and do some really nice basic things. It provides us more than just a Excel-style spreadsheet or table-style view. We can go much further with it. My opinion, I'm no Excel guy, so doing it with Access than you can in Excel. And that is certainly true from the user interface perspective. And that is the next point here, is that it allows us to create our own user interface. Lastly, many of you have already got it. It's installed on so many of the workstations and so many of our clients across the country. So it's not like you have to purchase something new. So the basic building blocks of our database, we have tables, queries, and then building off of those, reports and forms. We're going to talk about each of these briefly. We'll give you an idea of how they all kind of tie together and work with one another. And at that, let's dive in and let's take a peek at the database.